I think we talked about I guess we'll see how it works. I don't have good audio, so whatever comes out of that is I was going to use that chair to bring it in farther. That's why I theoretically right now it's on the screen. And if you like they have a big screen and they have a bunch of your audience can be or you actually don't have the hand at all, right? You have a table. I move this cube, drag it flies. You don't need to see my hand grabbing that cube. You just see the drag.
Yeah, but like, how can you know?
So you have the headset, right? And you see it dragging. That's because the cube is so right. So you reach out right to it.
How can you reach out to it if you don't have hands tracking?
The hands
Yeah, so you blindfolded, you want to reach out to something.
You're not blindfolded because you can see the object,
But you can see your hands. So like, you want to grab something. You want to see it in relation to your hand. So yeah, you see it, but like you're not gonna see your hand. So you want to like see that like before you get it, because you could just like miss it. It's just not gonna happen because you're not gonna know where you saw your location. No, that's gonna be really accurate. With your hands, location in space is not gonna be exact. That's a good question. How accurate is the human body's estimational sensation? So you like can't see your hand, but you see an object. You pick it up without like kind of like referring to your hand.
Because the new steam system relied on that. You see any of those videos? Basically, they stop your head, but you have the hand track, but you start moving it forward. They show you where the controller is, and then you reach down. So they were able to do that. Right, the body is contracted. It's got a solid inches. They don't worry yourself. Very hard to make them cheap. Very hard. I've never which is nothing. Very challenging. I've got about $10. Yes. Attention, everyone! May I have your attention, please? We are getting started, and Juan Pablo is going to kick us off.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. We are very excited to have two components presented today. They will show code demos, and we will share a lot of updates from the VR community. We're excited to have everyone here, and now I will pass to Jason to go with the update.
All right, yeah. So it's been the biggest month for VR in a long time because everyone that's following it knows that Oculus has been the absolute front runner since VR came back in late 2012. But with GDC, we now have 3 contenders who are all up on the high level HMD level. And people are saying that Vive, the option from Valve, might even be better than Oculus. And the huge part of that is Vive is coming out this year. That means that no matter what Oculus does, no matter what the delays are, 2015 is the year of the HMD. So if you've got projects that you're working on, get them ready because the wave's coming this holiday season and we all want to be there. So we're really excited to have a couple of people who are doing cool projects tonight, and I'm excited to hear from all of you about what you're all working on. And Francis is going to introduce our guests.
Cool. Actually, before that, I'm going to talk just a little bit about our next meetup, right? So our next meetup, we're going to be having a panel of DCVR members and also local VR enthusiasts, developers, people that are really into VR scene, knowledgeable about different aspects of VR. Because we want to give a chance for the VR community to come together and share knowledge, as well as allow other people that are outside the VR community to hear what the VR community has to say too. So we're going to be inviting a lot of people. We're going to try to make it a big event. And as part of making it a big event, we're also going to be giving out these things called dono cases, right? So these are essentially Google Cardboard Pluses. They're pretty nice, pretty cool. You break them open, you put your cell phone in, as long as it's an Android. Actually, you can use an iPhone too. Yeah, it turns into a VR headset. It's pretty nifty. So the way you win one of these is if you, on one of your social media channels, if you tweet at DCVR Meetup, is that it? Yeah, if you tweet at DCVR Meetup and say, come to the next DCVR Meetup with a link to our DCVR Meetup, you'll be entered in a contest to win one of these. So do that. You can win a cool cardboard VR headset.
And a huge thanks to Jaunt for donating the donor cases.
Yeah.
They were nice enough. Jaunt came out a couple meetups ago. I think some of you were here for that. They do the awesome immersive 360 video solution. So if anyone here hasn't checked out Jaunt, you should totally go do that because their videos are super cool.
For sure. They've been super helpful and they sent us these cool cases. So yeah, go Jaunt, go promote DCVR, and go promote our next meetup. So now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest, Will from Tactical Haptics. He's doing some really cool things with how you interact with the virtual world, not just look at it using your HMD, but be able to reach out and touch it in different ways. So yeah, Will.
Well, thanks for having me. And I'm just coincidentally here on the East Coast for a meeting. Part of our funding for our company is through grants. I once was a professor at the University of Utah, and all my academic research got funded by grants from the National Science Foundation. I'm doing my necessary plug for how I've gotten kind of where I am. And then since starting the company and working on it full time, we've gotten one SBIR from NASA. That one is meant for adapting some of our work towards teleoperation. So if you wanted an astronaut to not have to go outside of the space station, for example, to do some type of maintenance, she might control a telerobot outside of the spacecraft, or you might have a local representation based on cloud data, say on Mars, that now someone could interact with through teleoperation or through virtual reality. And then the stuff that we're doing with National Science Foundation is the reason I'm out here right now is actually to look at use cases for this device that might be simpler than general interaction in virtual reality to identify, say, use cases. Say you had Half-Life and you're interested in using a gravity gun and shooting stuff and hacking stuff. Maybe you could use a simpler device, and so we're trying to look at essentially the concept of the minimal viable product, MVP. So that's essentially what we're trying to identify for simpler use cases with So anyways, so what I'm here to talk about today is a little bit about the haptic technology that I've developed over the last 2.5 years it's existed. But that came out of about 6 years of research that was very applied. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on how we've kind of gotten where we are as well. So most of my talk today is about haptics. It's this very vague term, and it's actually been co-opted to mean vibration. So I kind of just wanted to come back and just define haptics before we get going, because someone by the end of tonight is going to try to demo and say, it's really awesome, where's your rumble motor? I guarantee it, they're going to totally recognize that it's something different. And haptics has come to mean vibration in the last 5 years or so. So what we're doing is haptics. Haptics isn't just vibration. It's one of the many things that you can experience through the sense of touch. So the analogy we did is haptics is the touch, is optics is the sight. Oh wait, if you have questions as I'm going through, just raise your hand. I'm happy to interject. By the way, the presentation is going to be pretty short. I'm going to show some videos and then we have demos for later on after the presentations are done. So if you have time, that's way more important and more interesting than listening to me talk about this, which is why I kind of keep my presentation kind of short unless there's a ton of questions. So this is actually a graphic that I adapted from a presentation. I actually went back and found that I presented at Vr Meetup almost 2 years ago. The same picture is still relevant. I changed the old picture of the DK1 to a DK2, although it could be a crystal cove or whatever it's going to be, or it could be a live or whatever. There's going to be some type of hands in the game. Right? So the two standard approaches are the virtual glove. I move my fingers, they move in the VR environment, or I hold the motion controller. Here's just kind of representing a motion controller-centric view on that. Some of the work that we've done for NASA actually makes it so you now don't have to choose between having good haptics and a motion controller and seeing your hands move in the VR space or in the teleoperation space, which I think is going to be a pretty critical thing to have there. The sense of presence that you get from having your hands there and actually having the environment respond to your sense of touch. So it's kind of that. And haptics is represented here as vibration, just because that's probably what you're most familiar with. You receive a text message, your phone vibrates in your pocket, you go, aha, you know what that is, or your rumble in your game controller. It's great when tanks are driving past because you can feel the difference between that when half the building is collapsing around you. Fantastic for transient events where vibrations are dominant. Well, what happens if I'm doing something as simple as I'm pushing on a wall? Should the wall vibrate the entire time I'm pushing on it? Probably not. Most of the time, features like that get turned off pretty quickly. You say, that's really cool, it has the haptics, and then you turn it off. There's all kinds of ways to portray this. What you're really looking for is something that's good enough. And essentially, that's what our technology is. It's good enough, especially when it's married up with everything else in a VR environment. It starts to kind of fool your senses. Okay? So we would say that you don't want the world to vibrate when you touch it. What you might want is something like what we're doing. So what are we doing? It's essentially we're applying friction forces, shear forces to your hand. And the way you typically experience the world through your sense of touch is it's forces and motions you experience through your muscles. You have sensing apparatus and your and the tendons that tell you where you are in space. Those sensing emotions. And when you push on or interact with the environment, forces come back to you. But it comes back usually through the skin. So you have skin sensation plus those forces and emotions in your muscles. The reason our stuff works, and I say this a couple of times, is because essentially you're supplying the motions, we're tracking your location. We're responding with this frictional feedback, which is the tactile component. And the one thing you're missing is actual resistance to your muscles. But we can do a pretty good job of creating an illusion that there is resistance there, and when you try our stuff, you'll kind of get a better sense of what we're talking about. So maybe you're going to have a motion interface, but one way or another, you're going to have a way to be able to interact with it. I think locomotion is going to be one of these big things, and this is the virtuous omni. It's one of the solutions out there for real locomotion. But again, our focus is here on providing feedback. So just to backtrack, how do we get where we are? This is your tax dollars at work. Making little silly things here. It's a little bit hard to see, but what happens is the finger becomes transparent here. You can see this little nub. This little nub moving here, it's just moving in 4 directions. It's the same exact nub that's in the middle of lots of laptops. That's an input, that's an output. What we start doing is saying, okay, well, we can actually use that to communicate navigation information. So if you had smartphone, and there's little maps, and you have these little nubs on there. You can walk around without actually looking down at the map. Put it on your steering wheel. You can not have TomTom talking to your split navigation system. Not have to look down at the console to see your map. You can get the cues through your fingertips. It's really good. You apply something on the order of a millimeter of motion, and you get like 99% accuracy. So at one point, after I got tenure, I started playing video games again at 38, and I said I'm really bad, especially going to do it. Last time I played video games a lot, I was at Atari 2600. A single joystick handle on there, and one button. So that was my level of gaming competency at the time. And I played Call of Duty online with my brother on Left 4 Dead, and I just completely get destroyed by him because I couldn't handle this whole gaze and motion thing. And so I said, okay, well, maybe actually there's something in some of the research I was doing, giving these navigational cues that might be able to help me in a video game environment. That's what led to essentially integrating these little nubs or tactors into the thumbsticks themselves as well. Then we went out and talked to a whole bunch of people, and they said, that's nice. It's just like a kiss of death when you're going out and doing your first customer reviews. So that's nice feeds. Go home, that was interesting. I can tell my friends that I tried something new, and maybe you'll read about it in some science article at some point. But what we did was something really interesting. We didn't give up. We kind of kept on iterating through the experiences that we were looking at. And we had a driving demo. And in this driving demo, we were just doing steering input with the left thumb. And through the corner, we displayed the centrifugal forces by swaying both of these little nubs side to side to parallel the feeling you feel from the inertia as you're cornering. And people are like, do that, this other thing actually draws attention from me. I don't want to know that guy over there or treasure over there. Some people do want to do that kind of stuff, but most of the gamers I'm talking to are like heavy experiential gamers. And so we started doing that, and people would start responding, give us more of that. And then integrating into the experience the notion of building stuff into the handle of the motion controller is kind of born at that point. And an earlier version of this is what kind of came out of that. So I'll get back to this one. The other thing you can do with this is you can put two of those guys back to back and create a nice little precision grip interface for this, and it works really well as well. So again, in this one, what we're doing is we're tracking where you are in space and responding with those same type of frictional forces that you feel if you're hanging on to that virtual object in your fingertips. That one works really well. We actually explored looking at that for surgical applications. We also looked at it for familiar with Z-Space or any kind of CAD applications for VR, virtual assembly things. We looked at it for that, and it just didn't resonate with the reviewers that we were sending our proposals into, whereas there seemed to be a market for gaming that they believed in. So that's kind of why we ended up not pushing on that initially. But translational motions. We'll look at that. We even did and we turned down the audio. I was talking to the course about application. So going from the transition of the centrifugal forces and the driving demo, the overall notion was that you're able to kind of portray these inertial forces, even though like you're not actually inducing body sway. You can actually see people kind of start to sway in their seat. So when you start putting in a game control and they're responding to the way that they're moving, it actually then represents those friction forces of that in-game object that you're virtually holding. And all through really simple motions in the handle of the device, whether these things are moving in unison together or whether they're moving contrary to each other. It's essentially like the equivalent of, if I apply a force on here, it causes friction to be transmitted through the skin. And no matter where I push on it, it causes these motions to occur. So if I push this way, all the friction forces are going up into my hand. If I push this way, friction forces are going down on that side of my hand and up on that side of my hand. And it generalizes. I can apply a force vector anywhere I want on here, and you can pretty closely match what those friction forces are around the circumference of the handle of the device. And by essentially knowing where the objects are, knowing where your hand is, estimating what those interaction forces through really simple spring models. We have integration with Unity through physics. It essentially dictates how the objects will move. You put a virtual spring at the interaction point, look at the stretch of that spring. That's your proxy for what the force is. You report to our system, set force, pass us that force vector. You scale it between plus and minus 1 because, well, we're not actually applying any real forces. So it's going to ask that question. How much force can you apply? And the answer is 0. But there's this nice illusion that there's forces there. So we're just kind of doing this arbitrary thing of following the same convention that people have done with thumbsticks and joysticks for a long time of mapping that input from plus and minus 1. So we're mapping the output and now this way it's on essentially like as it is on the same axis, scaled by the same magnitude. So normalizing to the magnitude of 1 is kind of a standard. And we've mapped it up to all kinds of interesting interactions. The ones I'm going to show here today are kind of newer, a little bit more gamified. We have a pulse gun. It has a nice little charging effect. If you pull a trigger, it kind of like winds up and then releases. There's a second one where it's like a lacrosse stick, space age lacrosse stick. So you're essentially kind of whipping little energy bombs off of the end of the stick. And then the last one is gravity gun. I think by far it's our best interaction. It's as if you have the force. I can lock onto somebody and I can lift him up and move him around effortlessly, but I can feel like I can experience the inertia of moving objects around that space. So I'm guessing that's, so we put it third, and most people will sit there and want to dwell on that one for a while. The nice thing about it is, if you are familiar with Z-Space has this little interaction paradigm where if you hold a stylus and then there's like this front-end length laser pointer, you interact at that front-end point. What we're doing is essentially that, but we allow you to scale along the beam axis as well. So all the things you could think to do with like a virtual assembly operation, you could do the same things with this, but now I'm actually allowing you to extend the reach across the room. So it affords opportunities that rather than, if you've ever done any kind of 3D animation or environment building, you're constantly moving, panning, zooming. This just extends your reach so that you can do all those same move, pan, zoom, but you also now have essentially infinite reach. And you lose some resolution when you get out those distances, but a lot of times you're just repositioning stuff and building an environment quickly. So having this ability to crudely go and push in place is kind of handy. Show videos. So I was going to show a couple of videos and see if I can, just because I don't have we don't have enough time to do all the demos. Here's an interesting one. So this is an example of the early days throwing one. One of the things that's kind of difficult in VR is having enough accuracy to reach out to precise locations. And so there's some affordances that you need to build into your game, your interaction. And here all we're doing is essentially having a local magnetic gravitational field that allows you so I can reach out and catch if I'm somewhere in the ballpark as opposed to having precision to be able to place the end of this little energy wand, throwing wand. But it's just breakout. You're just throwing stuff at bricks and the bricks just blow up. It's simple, but kind of fun to play for a while. Let's see. What we got? This one actually turns out to be kind of interesting. This one's harder to see. Can you guys see what's going on from back there? I don't know. I don't know what you guys see because it's kind of break up here. Can you see what's going on back there? Yeah. Okay. So all we're trying to do is we said we wanted to build in some interaction because as cool as VR, interactive VR is going to be way cooler. If I can play catch with you and you're in Hawaii, right, and I'm in Washington, D.C., that's cool, right? People like this notion of shaking hands. Shaking hands is not very interesting. Playing catch with your friend is kind of cool. At least I think so.
Are you using IMUs to track the position of the controller? Or?
So we're tracking agnostic. What we're currently using is a Razer Hydra. So when you try the demos, what you'll see is we have a Hydra just attached to the bottom of here. For GDC, we actually showed a wireless controller, so it essentially looked like this. It had a Holiness tracker on there. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Holiness, but they're high-end magnetic tracker they've been making it for 20 years for VR and other applications. You know, $6,000. But it's like the $6,000 version of what 6 Sense is doing, and we're just waiting for this thing to come out. But we just wanted to have a technology integration to show we learn this. That's what we're also showing investors. This is what your money will buy us. And it's what everybody wants. No one wants to have to set up a hat back there with all the wires. It's just a pleasure to sit down when everything's wireless. You sit down, all of a sudden, forces appear in your hand as if by magic. And even though this isn't applying the forces to you, when people move around and they get to the end of the rope, it reminds them that they're not in this magical virtual world, they're in this synthetic virtual world, right? And it's better than when they reach out and nothing is there when they go push on stuff, but it's still this limitation. Here, just so we can kind of run through it, is the interaction that had demos for. So the guy I'm working with that does all of our development, it's all in Unity. Mike is the developer that works with me, and he's a really good 3D animator, and he's a really good programmer and a good developer. So we put together this thing for a couple weeks before Upload VR back in February, and then we kind of polished it up a little bit after getting some feedback on interaction. So this is that was the gravity gun interaction. You kind of get a sense that you had a connection with that remote object. Here is the little throwing line. We found that people are not particularly great at being patient and waiting for these little energy bombs being lobbed at them. So now you essentially just have them auto spawn and kind of cast them down. I think it's one of these things that when you're giving the 2-minute demo at a conference, it's really loud. There's a lot of things that you have to just make work magically, whereas people would actually want to learn how to do these more complex things if it was a real game interaction. Because it adds some challenge to the game, adds some more interaction. But all you're doing is logging this down. That's kind of the range of interactions that we have with swords and flails. And if anybody likes Skyrim, you can go and kill dragons and orcs. We have slingshots, and we have slings, and whatever medieval implement of death that you can imagine, we can portray the physics for it and portray it through our device. I don't think I should have too many more things in here. I'm just going to maybe take some questions. Yeah, that's what I was going to do, take some questions. So
you said this works right now with Unity. Do you see a sort of easy path being compatible with some of the other game engines? Do they have similar systems that would allow a developer to easily produce that feedback?
So we talked to the guys at Epic and are going to get some help to put it in Unreal Engine 4. Right now, so the interface to our device, all we do in Unity is we import the functions for essentially doing set for us. And then we have just tons of examples. So it'll take a while to port them over so we can have a equally large set of examples in Unreal Engine 4, but it's just a matter of cranking through it. We can talk to some folks that kind of probably want to help us with that as well. Every time we go to a new engine, it'll be with this learning curve. But I think Unreal 4 and Unity, we actually haven't jumped over to Unity 5 yet, but I think Unreal and Unity are probably going to dominate others from VR, at least for the prototyping stage that we're at.
You mentioned you were tracking system agnostic. So are you guys essentially an add-on to what a tracking system is? Or are you working with the tracking systems that implement your technology with it? Or how are you going about getting your product in the hands of consumers?
So that was the critical failing of our Kickstarter about a year ago, is that we essentially were tracker agnostic then too, and we said, hey, all you people who backed the 6 Sense STEM system, they had this little STEM module at the time. It was about the size of a finger. And you pop it into the front of our controller and life would be great. It's kind of good that we didn't end up going down that road, because they actually ended up not selling this little tiny thing as a separate module unit. But back to your question of how we're going to get into the hands of consumers. So right now, in the short term, we actually have a small stock of Hydras, and the people that are part of our beta group, they get a device with a Hydra on it. Once the staff becomes available, that will be an easy drop-in. But what we're really looking for is to write our own ticket on having the flexibility to have the tracking system we want. We don't want consumers to have to pay for our tracking system and the other native tracking system and the ecosystem they want to use. And so that's kind of for us why the valve is pretty attractive to work with, because one, they'll focus on having great content, and two, the reason that they developed Lighthouse is so that people can go and integrate with their peripherals, have less of a walled garden approach to having an ecosystem set up. But that said, you know, we're talking to people at all the big companies, and it's just a matter of figuring out how to navigate all that. It's really a tough problem for us, because everybody just wants a system that works, and they want it as inexpensively as possible. And we just want to get our stuff out into the hands of people, but there's this very delicate ecosystem thing. People at Oculus for a while have been talking about, for a long time, adding on the ability to have other units tracked, either the same camera or at least part of their native system. And that talk has been around for about a year now. We've looked at using the Sony Move directly and licensing that technology. So it's an ongoing problem. It's one that we're going to solve and have a single solution that we integrate for before we release our own consumer product. But likely what's going to happen is we'll do some combination of building our own hardware and licensing stuff to a console. And then it'll be whatever tracking system is part of that system too.
If you're thinking about building your own hardware, how do you feel about the news of like the Lighthouse from Valve, and it's being able to like integrate engineers, but not needing any and actually having their own hardware to be independent, just using it.
It's very encouraging. It's a game changer for us in that we get access to it. It's the requirement for a license on it is that you make it Steam compatible. Our stuff runs on a PC, so we have to probably do some clever things to not make it Steam compatible, which I don't think that's very productive. So, yeah, so it's a game changer for us in that we don't have to be relegated to only running on a PS4. We don't only have to, kowtow to Oculus. It gives us lots of opportunities. It's good for the entire community because it's going to push people to the main developers, the main integrators to have systems that are more open, because I know there'll be choices for developers and consumers.
Is there a maximum limit of the tension? Like if you were trying to pretend like you were lifting up a bowling ball as opposed to a boulder, can you tell the difference between weight, or is there like a max?
You can tell the difference between weight, but it's all relative, right? And the one thing to kind of keep in mind is, anyone ever heard of the Nogan Falcon? Yeah, so you can output about 2 pounds of force with that. And can you make it feel like the difference between a boulder and lifting a pencil? Absolutely. Is it really producing the force of that boulder? Absolutely not. Right. So there's enough resolution, I think, is the question you're asking, to be able to tell the difference between these different interactions, as long as you have them in mind in advance. Like if you're doing the pencil and boulder, and then I need to go and display a Mack truck, the Mack truck's probably going to feel like that boulder.
I had a question from the guys in Converge that we're streaming to. So he wants to know, what's the coolest demo or experience that you've run with your system?
Gravity gun by far.
Gravity gun?
Yeah. And we have one demo, which we'll see how we do on time here, but it's gravity gun. We've got a stack of blocks. People will just sit there, flip a block in the air, catch it, flip the block over here, grab one of the small ones, flip it in the air, catch it, move it around. Doing that, if we hook that up multiplayer, and you could actually do gravity gun, flipping and moving and all this kind of stuff with a friend, like it would redefine Minecraft. Which, I don't know, I have kids and they can sit there and play that for hours and hours and hours and hours. If you gave them the ability to have the force in VR. I mean, I think everyone in this room would love to have it. It's the way for us mortals to have the Force. And we've been told, by the way, that is exactly what a gravity gun feels like, which is completely fictitious, right? Because, you know, if you've seen Portal or Half-Life 2, you know what it looks like, but what does it feel like? So we hope that we redefine what that means. What's that?
I said, you got government contracts. If anybody knows what a gravity gun feels like, it's probably science.
Maybe the guys at NASA, or maybe it's the guys at DARPA.
Do you guys have to well, you probably do, have to make sacrifices to make it commercially affordable? What are those sacrifices? Like if you could throw any amount of money at it, what would be the difference?
So, so over the course of the first year, we went through 3 iterations. This is like 3 big. The iterations that took place are, 1, we made it more ergonomic. 2, we went to actuators that are sourceable and inexpensive, but that there's expensive versions of the same type of actuator out there that essentially, if you want a more expensive, it's like the difference between buying, you know, the Honda and the Acura, right? By placing slightly different components in there and different materials, you can make it feel nicer, you can have it perform nicer, you can have it quieter, smoother, all these things. So that scales with cost, and actually that's one of the things that we proposed as part of our NASA grant is to go and look at that exact trait, because we know, I presented last year at IEEE VR, and the high-end VR folks that are used to buying systems for tens of $1,000s were like, we can't do that right now. We would gladly buy these for, and they named a pretty high number. And a consumer tries it, and they're like, this is really awesome. I wish this was in my PlayStation. And it was the same device. But you know, the answer to your question is there's this whole extensible range, and our target is probably to license to a console company that could easily put this at a $99 price point. And probably our price point that we're trying to sell kind of in this middle range is something on order of the $500 to $1,000 range. That's probably what we can make money on without having a platform to be able to tax, to have license fees come in through the game sales. And that's the reason why you can sell a console system at relatively low margin, because you're going to make it up on every title that comes in until it's something on order of something like 8%. So on every copy of Modern Warfare that's sold on PS4, there's some money that gets exchanged between that developer and this one, which we don't get.
I might have missed this a while ago, but I noticed in your earlier versions you had 4 actuators. Now you have 3. What was the change?
So that's the biggest change. We showed stuff the first year with 4 at GDC in 2013. What you're trying to do is some combination of having high friction and having mechanical engagement with the person's skin. So your palm is kind of curved, so you tend to want these curved elements in contact with the person's skin, just so you kind of get some mechanical interlocking. When you do that on multiple sides of the controller, it just gets much larger in size. And so when you put 4 as opposed to 3, the diameter just gets bigger. And we were told that by some people that had smaller hands, it's just hard for me to hold. And so the sweet spot is if you go less than 3, you can no longer do spatial feedback. And so that's what we went down to, and it reduced the size of the handle sufficiently that now we don't, like my daughter's 10 years old, so she can hold this in her hand and it works.
And do you have like normal vibrating motors in it besides your own?
There's also that, and we usually just
to
remind people how pathetic that is.
Yeah. That's why I didn't know if you put it in yours too.
Like I was giving a demo to some potential investors this morning, and I said, okay, so that was kind of cool. They said, well, if we wanted to do this for military gun training thing, I can totally just do that with vibration. And I said, totally. And I had it tuned up so that it's almost identical to the vibration bang 2 levels of a Wiimote. Okay. They tried that, and they're like, oh. Okay. The reason that we did that, by the the way, is that the old message that people go with is haptic's good. Which is not a bad message, but then they go home and they're like, yeah, you're like rumble's great. And you're like, no!
So you've been in this space for some years now, working with haptic technology. Where do you see the future of haptics in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years?
If I did it based on extrapolation of the past, it would be exactly where it is right now. Well, I mean, so like people ask, there's always these questions of the why now? Why is it going to work? So I've been doing research on haptics for about 15 years, and there's way cooler stuff out there. I'll just tell you, like the stuff. The only reason that I left my day job to do this full time is because it's so simple and might actually work. It's in terms of bill of materials and overall cost, it's actually really close to the bill of materials of a standard game controller right now. But I think the part of the reason of the why now is VR is a market that actually needs some compelling haptic feedback in it to really remain immersive. And not only just on the input side, people talk about like input is the next challenge. Input isn't the next challenge. People know how to do it. The reason that HMD's head-mounted displays have come so far is because people know how to do this for 20 years. It's just way too expensive, right? And so when you've got cell phone components and some smart people to figure out the tracking, all that stuff comes together, and it's just going to be a big battle as to how that one comes out. Haptics, people have known about how to do haptics attached to the end of a robotic arm for a long time. But that's not the solution that he wants for moving around in VR. What you want is like the vision of holodeck, right? I move around and magically things work. I can't give that to you today, but if you're willing to hold a piece of hardware in your hand, I can give you some pretty compelling applications. So there's going to be ours. There's a couple other ones out there that we use mechanical brakes to stop the motion of your hand at some point. There's a bunch of them that are shifting inertials around. Striker VR just rebranded themselves as Haptech. It's essentially a little sliding rail where you move a mass into an end stop and it goes clunk. And it's great for portraying impact because that's exactly what it's doing. But as far as we can tell, there's not a lot of people doing these kind of general interactions like what we do. There actually is one other company that is also interesting. They're called Sense. Some people may have heard of them. They're essentially reciprocating a little mass back and forth asymmetrically. So you accelerate in one direction faster than the other. So the net feeling is a pulsing force in a single direction. So they can actually do some spatial force feedback with that. But it always has a vibrational component with it. And if anyone ever like mowed their lawn or used a feedbacker or anything that kind of reciprocates, what happens to your hands after about 5 minutes on that interface? So your hands are done, right? And so I think they're going to have a hard time getting around that. It is really good. It is pure force feedback in that there's an actual inertial shift, unlike our illusions. But they're going to have this hurdle to get over of actually not having to push the finger. The other big haptic thing is going to happen to your tablets as well. People have heard of surface haptics. There's people using electrostatic or essentially standing surface wave to reduce the friction when it's active, and then turn it off, and then having your finger, or you can track with electrostatic force to increase the coefficient of friction. So as you move your finger along a touch surface, it'll feel like your finger is dragging more heavily or grabbing, and there's some really nice effects you can do. And if you haven't heard about that in the next year or so, you'll also see that coming out in the world of haptics. That's like the stuff we're doing, the inertial stuff, all of the VR-driven stuff, and then touchscreens are going to be one of the next big things in haptics. And so the public will think of haptics as more than just vibration in 3 years, but that's where we're coming from at this point.
One more. So it sounds like you have like a small company with a sort of medium customer base that's purchasing these things right now. What are your?
I would be generous to say that. There's 2 of us, and there's 4 devices, or 4 sets of devices in it. So,
okay.
So yes, small and medium. We'll call that.
Yeah.
Small is the right relationship.
So are you like 3D printing these, or injection molding them, or
Not 3D
building
printing
circuit boards yourself?
I used to build the circuit boards myself, and I'm now making the transition transition to having everybody else assemble them, because selling a few of them actually pays for a full set of.
Yeah. Who are you having make that?
Who are we having make the boards?
Yeah.
There's a place in San Jose called Costronics. There's all kinds of places that we got bids from. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Cool.
Thanks,
Well,
Will.
Be sure to stick around for a demo. It's way more interesting than any of the things I've said.
Cool. So before our next presenter, I actually want to give away one of these databases to someone who's a lot for us at DCVR. It helps a lot. That's the reason why we're here right now. Danny.
thanks for bringing us here.
Cheers. Cool. And now we have Effie from Paracosm.
So are we ready for some haptics? Yeah.
Oh, what's your next one? Oh, we. Yeah, that's pretty crazy stuff.
Going along with it, so we're watching a show.
That's probably better, right?
Yeah. They had experiments in there. They took us the mirror, it was his hand, and they never pretending that you could do the exact like, you guys put together your hand, and start like putting it
Everyone pay attention over here again.
So that's kind of why. That's pretty neat.
Hi everyone, I'm Effie Rodriguez. I'm from Paracosm. This is my first time in DC, and I'm really super stoked to come talk to you guys because I get really nerdy about this stuff. And I'm sure that's why we're all here too. We are a 2-year-old startup, and we're based out of Gainesville, Florida. We were born out of mostly University of Florida. We just opened an office in Cambridge when we got our most recent round of funding back in September-ish. And what we do is we enable spatially intelligent VR and AR. And we are trying to working to blur the lines between human and machine perception by using 3D maps as a bridge. Most of us are, in fact, probably all of us are familiar with depth sensing devices. We have actually worked with Google on the Project Tango phone and tablet. We contributed some code to the 3D mapping platform last year. We've been using 5sense cameras since kind of our inception, and we're slowly starting to work with the Intel RealSense and the Mantis Vision tablets are coming out pretty soon, so we're really excited to get our hands on that. We really strongly believe that these devices are going to be in your pocket very, very soon. If Apple's acquisition of PrimeSense for ungodly amounts of money last year was anything to tell, it's going to happen. And sure, we're all familiar with Magic Leap and their craziness. So yeah, we think that spatially aware intelligent devices are going to be coming really, really soon. They're going to be small, they're going to be cheap, and they're going to be awesome. So we're building software in order to power those machines so that they can integrate, they can work with your environment really awesome. I'm going to show you guys walk you guys really quickly through kind of our scanning process. I also have to be in this video. This is me scanning a room with a Google Tango phone. It's a lot like recording a video. We don't use tripods. We're using mobile devices. And how we work is these video frames, we connect to our cloud for reconstruction, and we built some really powerful algorithms that take each of these frames, these RGBD color camera frame combined with a depth frame, rearranges them like arranging a jigsaw puzzle. And this is really cool because it's like it doesn't matter what order they came in. So like we can do really big spaces, and we can do them fast. So I'm going to show you guys kind of a couple examples of some of the before I go on, any questions so far? Kind of like good. All right. So this is actually not that one small. This is a 3D scan that we actually took of the DC Department of Transportation. This thing is really massive. You can see the size of the scanner. There are a lot of companies in the 3D scanning space. A lot of them are focused on smaller areas or tabletop size areas because it's a really difficult problem trying to figure out how to piece together, all this information that comes from camera, figure out camera position. It's really tricky. So this is what we've been working on for the past 2 years, trying to get scanning really well. This is actually one of my websites. I'm going to show you a cool. This is a demo we did in San Jose just last week. This is a 3D arena we built, and this is like a video demo. This is probably about a 10-minute scan with one of our scanning tablets sent to our cloud, and now we have. You can run around and jump.
So this is a real place?
This is a real place. Yeah, this is an arena that we built, and we shipped it off to San Jose. We actually built a robot, an RC robot that usually has a crisis camera strapped to it, and it was able to. Well, I'll get to that. That's later in the presentation. but yeah, so this is there's that. And is it this one? No. So, we can take these spatially accurate 3D scans and we can drop them into a game engine. We can put them in an Oculus Rift, and right there you have VR made for real life, which is already pretty cool on its own, but we are kind of seeing this as a means to an end. It's not actually about the VR. It's about the AR. So kind of our goal and the mind-blowing idea is that using these 3D maps as a kind of a guide, we can align them to the actual world and use that as a canvas for building virtual worlds. So, it's very it almost creates like a parallel universe. If you have a 3D map aligned to your own, this is a process that we call localization. Are you guys familiar with that term? Yes. So when you have a localized environment, these creatures, whatever it is that you build inside these virtual worlds, they're not kind of superficially just in the device that you have. Like they are mapped to a real location in the world, and they live there in kind of a parallel universe. And you have your tablet as the lens to this parallel universe that allows you to see them. More technical term, a technical definition of localization is when the actual position and rotation of the physical device in the real world matches up with the virtual camera and the 3D map. So I guess this is you look at your tablet and pointing at the door on the 3D map matches up the door in the real world. That's it's a really difficult problem to solve. But last week actually we were in oh, I have to see this first. Oh yeah, there was actually a video that I wanted to show you guys. I'll have to show it to you guys afterward, but it's a video showing our demo at or I can kind of just scroll down this webpage. So what we did was we built this lunar landscape arena. We were kind of powered by NVIDIA, so that it was awesome. And we rigged up this RC pod with that sensing camera. We built an app on an NVIDIA Shield tablet with a scan of this same arena, and the user is able to pinpoint to touch a part of this app on the such location, and then the robot will navigate toward it while avoiding all the obstacles because it understands it's kind of like our first baby steps towards solving the localization problem in a really meaningful way. It's really fantastic. We're into kind of building stuff.
Is that what you use for the Department of Transportation as well?
No, for the Department of Transportation, we had a Surface tablet with a PrimSense and actually yeah.
How long did that take?
Which one?
The Department of Transportation.
That one was pretty big. I would say it probably took. It might have taken up to half an hour.
How much data put up that building?
Probably.
That's nuts.
Yeah, probably. It's really ridiculously fast.
Is it a lot of data?
It's a shitload of data. Gigs of data, yeah. Where are you? I don't really understand. Okay, there we go. Okay, so. Oh, there we go. I think this is actually really what I want to show you guys. So it's the visualization of the arena that we created. And this is a kind of a visualization of the robot seeing its way through the arena. Points location. We also gamified it a little bit by dropping in kind of like little diamonds, and then if you could get the robot to maneuver and actually look through the diamonds, you would get points for it. One of the demos we're working on next is actually going to be at Augmented World Expo coming in June. This coming with Beyond Cat. Well, imagine that annoying tinny song in your house in real 3D sound. And you have your tablet, and you actually have to kind of chase Neon Cat around your house. And he's just kind of like dodging you, and you've got like your headphones in it. It's like, yeah, this is a visualization though. We're working to have the demo live with real human.
Parents everywhere are super safe.
Yeah, so yes, quick recap. 3D cameras, 3D cameras are coming. We are gonna we're really working on stuff to get those 3D those spatial lead-enabled devices like just integrated into our lives, into our world in a really meaningful way. And we want to see data in the real world. We think that when that happens, it's going to be like just this crazy paradigm shift. Like we're not going to see information the same way when it's out here versus when it's in here. So we're working on developing kind of an SDK for AR and VR developers, and hopefully that'll be out in the next year, year and a half. Now there's really, timelines are kind of hard to say, but we're working really hard to do that. So if you're interested in if you have a project that would work really well with this technology, or if you just kind of want to keep in touch, like come talk to me. If you have like really technical questions, I'm mostly a designer first, so I might not be able to answer those, but I can definitely hook you up with some other engineers who can answer your most burning technical questions, assuming it's not like under supervision perhaps. So. I forgot to mention, I have a Project Tango with me, and I've got some of our scans. So you guys will be able to put on the headset and walk around and just cool VR. All right.
Thanks.
Questions? I love as best as I can.
When you're doing the scan, is it getting both the model and the textures and everything in one swipe?
Yes.
And what resolution is that getting it at? So if you do a house, how much of your house does it look like?
It looks pretty good. Right now, we aren't focusing on the photo texturing as much as we're focusing on the actual spatial kind of accuracy.
Right.
Photo texturing is also a difficult problem to get, but yes, it does get them both in one fell swoop. Each frame has, that the video frame has the RGB data, and then it has a depth data overlay on it. So like it's them all the time.
What kind of hardware is the software running on to actually stitch the 3D model together?
We are doing it in the cloud on Amazon.
How many nodes is it taking them?
I'm not entirely sure. But I can hook you up with one of the engineers who would know that. Probably quite a few. Yeah.
What kind of headsets are you using?
We've got a couple Oculuses at the office. We have Meta Space glasses. We haven't played around with that one as much. We've been working a lot with the Project Tango and this kind of headset that transforms it into a.
Yeah, what headset is that?
Yeah, this is I think it's a Swedish company called Dive. This is actually a prototype. They sent it to us. I don't think they're actually working yet. But yeah, so we've been working a lot with this.
Sweet.
I think there's scanning locations. So we're looking to scanning like objects.
We can scan objects, and we can actually scan objects pretty well. But it's not really the problem we're trying to solve, because there are already a lot of companies out there who do that do object scanning, that do like people scanning for like visual effects, and that's the large space problem is much harder, and that's what we want to solve. I've got a couple more OBJ files. We've got one where it's our CEO in here. He's kind of sitting on a couch with like the goggles on. We scanned a couple people. So we can. Yeah.
Yeah. So could you see like I know it's not directly everyone, but like I just see it as basically being able to have your phone have this kind of technology and then scanning an object and having it in the virtual world.
Yes, theoretically it's the same.
So you can use this technology in there.
Yes, absolutely. But we can also do the large spaces too.
Yeah.
Like the real
awesome.
money pot. Yeah.
What about accurately scanning very, very large?
Very, very large objects. I think that it is not a problem, assuming you can get all the way around the object. I mean, I'm not sure how large you're talking or what shape you're talking.
Or something.
Basically, whatever the case.
Tower, wind turbines, towers.
That might be a little harder. Since we're using IR cameras right now, they don't work very well outside. If they were inside and if you had platforms that were, could go all around, then you could probably scan. Or if you like hook it up to a drone, you just move that thing around and you're like really good with the scanning. Probably get a really great 3D app out of it. Yeah.
So if I were developing like an FPS and I wanted to make this building into a level,
Yes.
are you guys hoping with your SDK for someone to be able to map this and then push it to an engine like Unity? Or?
That's exactly what we're looking for. We're kind of we're developing technology that can be used for that purpose. We're also developing technology for robotic applications as well. So we're really hoping that this is kind of a fundamental technology that can be used by various applications. But absolutely, we have a couple mock-ups of first-person shooters using this technology. We're really excited about it.
Good. You can use it for real estate too. Let people do walk around.
Yeah, we get that asked about that a lot. There's another company out there called Vr, and they're also kind of a depth sensing scanning company. They're more tripod based, and they're really going after the really sweet, like pretty representations of their buildings. Because the photo texturing isn't quite there yet, we're not trying to aggressively pursue like that real estate market. We're really just trying to like make this as good as possible for get it as accurate as possible for like a myriad of applications. We're not like trying to go to like one particular market just yet. Yes.
It's really that was really awesome presentation. I checked out the website before, but it exceeded my expectations seeing it. But I'm wondering, can multiple scanners, work on the same sort of thing?
Like yes.
Yeah, can you have multiple scanners at one time simultaneously?
Yes, that's one of the beautiful things about the way that our algorithm works. Because it's a giant jigsaw puzzle. It doesn't care in what order each of these 3D snapshots comes in.
Yeah.
If it's gonna like cluster them whether they came from one machine or whether they came from several, and it's gonna put them all together. So
That's why I said with
really
like
aggressive.
multiple scanners and one thing like a 360 one just going everywhere.
We haven't tried that yet.
Instead of a flashlight, they have like a torch.
No, that sounds pretty awesome.
Does that make it any orders of magnitude faster with multiple scanners? And if so, is it linear?
The scan time would be shorter because you'll spend less time, per section. The computing time would be more because you have more space to cover. But not more orders of magnitude more.
The computing itself, is that something you're licensing out or more like providing the service? People can use your SDK to get the scans, but your service will be the one that stitches it together to make the end product. I guess how you're monetizing it.
Yeah. As far as we're not sure yet.
Okay.
We are yes, we are very interested in building an SDK, but I'm not sure yet how we're going to be monetizing it. Right now we're kind of working with some really big some partners. We're trying to do some really cool projects with really big companies. And video is one of them. In the past we worked with Tango, and we're really trying to get this technology working and looking really good before we can kind of nail down the business of the solid business.
So you said you had some trouble with outdoor scans. I guess what's can you do outdoor scans? Is it difficult or what's?
Yes. So the reason why outdoor scans don't work with experiments is because they use infrared technology, and outdoors the sun is this giant IR thing, so the images just get blown out. But there are a couple of cameras that are coming to market that are not IR based and stereoscopic cameras mostly. So we haven't worked with them yet, but the plan is to do that eventually. In theory, our algorithms work the same. It's just a matter of all the little details of how to interface with this new thing.
You said you had a Tango tablet there. Is it 7mm accuracy on the tracking when you have it, or is it kind of crude?
It is. It's pretty good. The exact millimeters I don't know, but it's pretty tricky when you put it on. Yeah. It does tend to drift a little bit over time because it's still it's still developing, but it's not quite there yet 100%. But it's pretty cool.
You mentioned RGB, and so is all the data that is converted into just little dots on the 3D board, or you're actually trying to create 3D meshes?
Yes, we use 3D meshes. Yes. yeah, we have a. Again, I'm not one of the engineers, so like I'm not familiar with the exact process, but yeah, we do work with 3D meshes, and like our point clouds get transformed to 3D meshes through like a process that happens after the 3D mesh puzzle solving.
Cool. Well,
so you said you guys started 2 years ago, right?
Yes.
And you now have an office in Cambridge?
Yes.
That's really cool. So are you guys, do you see like, did you start open 2 years ago, or are you new to the company?
I was at a company from the beginning. I'm the lead graphic designer, and I created a lot of the branding for the company. So slowly absorbing like the 3D, the VR and the AR stuff over time. So yes, I have been with the company since the beginning.
So have you seen more of like, is it easier to tell people how useful this is? Better technology coming out? Have you seen more partners come to you and say, hey, like,
yeah.
It's been growing?
It's been definitely growing. When we first started 2 years ago, it was really hard to just kind of find, when any new technology comes out, it's almost like you have to like bridge it to something that people already know so they can understand it. And that was really difficult at first because like I remember we at one point we did a 3D mesh or a 3D walkthrough in one of our spaces, and somebody looked at it and said, "Wow, your camcorder is really bad." So we had to like dumb it down and put an overlay of mesh on top of it, so that it was like, "Oh shit, this is like 3D." It's like, and I think that process has been, where like the field that we've been in has been more popular over the last like 2 years, and it is easier to talk about now. Yes, definitely. People get excited about something like that. Oh yeah, weird.
And one more from Converge.
Yes.
Someone wants to know if you've experimented with LiDAR for outdoor scans.
We have not experimented with LiDAR. We have only been using the kind of short range RV cameras. Yeah, we've been using them. We haven't been using laser because I believe that LiDAR you don't really get a color image with it. It's extremely accurate, but it doesn't and it can map out the surface of the environment very well. But there's no color data. We kind of wanted to go with the handheld stuff because we believe it's going to be really big. And there are a lot of companies out there that are doing really amazing LiDAR stuff. We don't want to. Yes.
So you said sunlight throws it all together.
Outside, it just gets blown out. A lot of the data gets missing.
If you have windows.
Huh?
If you have windows in the space that you're scanning.
If we have windows, we kind of have to like prep the room a little bit to make sure like there isn't too much like extra IR coming, or else it will affect the scan. Hopefully the cameras get better over time, so they can kind of account for that. Right now we're still kind of like polishing, trying to work around some of these environmental factors to get rid of business.
Does it struggle with glass?
Yes. Shiny surface, it does not like shiny surfaces.
Cool. All right, well, thank you so much. That was really awesome, and I'm not going to talk anymore because I really want to try this out. But everyone, April 20th, save the date. It's going to be the next meetup. It's going to be really cool, so don't plan anything for that. And thanks again for Abby and Will coming out. We're really excited to have them.
I'm going to try to take the camera around and show you guys some of the equipment that they have here. And, if anybody wants to talk, we can do that too. I don't know how this is going to work, so we'll see. Oops, I think it's done. Did you mess up? Oh, there it is. It's set up for everybody in Converge. Can you take this?
Why is that problem getting from there to there?
Because you don't have like Unity or something? I don't know.
That seems like stuff like that.
So you don't like the top strap?
Well, yeah.
So
Tap right here. You want to maybe check out.
All right.
Just to start out.
I do think the forklift is kind of
The
simple.
360 photos?
Here, like, do the triggers here and humper here. It's start here on top of your head.
Sorry.
Come on in. Also makes it easier with the wireless the two bits there. We're happy today.
So it's got kind of a little charging effect. You can probably grab it, yeah, tighter here. You don't want a death grip, but something that's firm, somewhere in between, right? Yeah, and then you'll find if you just kind of back off on the grip string, at some point it'll just feel like it's something sticking to your hand,
Right.
and it just feels weird.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It definitely has.
This one you don't need the trigger. So it's like a cross stick.
Right.
So just gonna flip that little energy bomb off the end there.
Oh, I see.
There's actually a mode that you can pull the trigger and then it actually will hold on, so it's more like a sling.
Oh, right.
So you can kind of twirl around and then release the trigger to throw it, but it's just a lot easier to just flip it off and it's a lot easier to explain what a stick is than what a sling is.
Right. And so how do you calibrate? Because like right now the gear is like right here, but it feels over here.
You want to, if you just go back to having it look straight forward, and having it right here, I'll get some calibrated again. It's one of the problems with having two tracking systems. Because we have the hydro that's on the bottom of your right hand.
Oh, okay. So
you
we
have
have
the
to
Oculus,
upload
these
this.
separate tracking systems, and they know nothing about each other except for the transformation we put in place. They can move also along the beam axis, so towards you or away from you. This is what I was describing. It's kind of like having an implement to have the force.
Right. It definitely is that. Yeah, because you can. I'll let somebody else.
So just you can finish. They got one last dude, and then.
How about if I do this for you?
Everybody's a winner.
Nice.
If you want to hang out, I think once we get everybody through, I'll probably do a little bit longer stuff. There's this one where you move around that feel like they're different mass and everything. But anyways, whoever's next, just hop in. So you need the trigger to do the grab or to shoot. So much nicer with wireless right hand. You just let it kind of settle. You don't need the.
I will in a minute. I'll just kneel down. You're good. You're good. I'll just kneel down.
All right. Let me just make sure your calibration's good. Look straight forward. Put your hand like here. All right. And away you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Second one is just like a pop stick. Basically, you're just going to be like casting energy bombs off the end of the stick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
This last one, the gravity gun, we'll need the trigger.
Yeah, of course. It's also around.
Tell the operation for NASA.
The only thing that works
Oh yeah,
Web applications, that's pretty cool. I'm doing web stuff with VR over there, and it's stuff like HTML and stuff. So
I
you
would-
can have like a special HTML markup language. Yeah, kind of. I think it is WebGL, one of those types of things. I didn't get too deep into like how exactly, but I just want
If you reopen it, does it reorient perhaps?
Just made that up so that
No affiliation. Oh, no. So this is the organizer, guys. This is. Say your name.
Well, hi, my name is Juan. I'm the organizer of DCBR. Welcome.
And
Hey, I'm Danny.
He's the lucky winner of the what is it called?
The Dodo case.
The Dodo case.
I'm very
Sweet.
excited about it. I'm about to turn this into a new project as soon as I get
Let me
home.
see if I can get it to not be washed out.
There we go.
That's about as close as I can get. Very cool. All right, thanks, guys. Didn't mean to interrupt.
He's been looking for a place to keep his dodo for the longest time.
Actually, a lot of it actually comes from the video itself. Show you one of the games that's already on there. You can't tell.
Now, I know you interact with it by tapping it on the side.
Yeah.
Is there any Bluetooth controller?
So for this, they have a essentially a USB controller. You can buy. You have to buy
This is Matthias, everybody.
Hey guys, how you doing?
He's one of the co-author or co-organizers. So, well, yeah, I don't know if they're still watching. I'm assuming they are. I don't know. I'm still live, so. I wanted to show you guys this Swedish headset again.
Creating virtual spaces from real world spaces is going to be an important part of my future.
It's a little hard to see on this screen.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could turn one of these lights off.
Yeah.
Let me ask. Your presenter would like to know if you can turn one of the lights off on the screen, if that's possible. Yeah. Sweet. So I'm trying to get the lights turned off on the screen. Sweet. Okay.
Somewhere you just gotta do a gamified version of this space where you kind of like run around and go up the stairs and like jump. And it's really fun.
Yeah. So this is the technology that they scanned from a phone or a tablet.
Yeah. When you have a 3D mesh, you just damage for you in a real space that is impossible to get.
It's like that guy.
Yeah.
I see it all. There's a lot of really good security out there.
Really, how so? How do you think so?
Well, imagine if security cameras at facilities did this, right? Then if something went wrong, you just going to the tape meant going to the virtual world of that event happening.
Yeah. Another interesting application is actually it's 4D. You have if you scan the space.
Can you hold this at the screen for me? I got a text message from somebody in Converge. I want to see.
As if you can the process of being and then you can put that on a timeline.
So you think what, 4 or 5?
Get someone in Converge. Okay.
Like applications for this, like
Just I'll try.
or even crazier, like what if we all had
I was trying to get somebody in Converge, but it apparently failed for them. But they were trying to do it on their phone. There was the guy on the left, the guy on the left waving his arms. He was doing Converge. But I think everybody else's computers are tied up on other things. Is there anything specific you guys want to see? Do you want to see the haptic stuff again? I guess I'll wait for a text. I guess it's like a 30-second delay. You're gonna go?
I'm sorry, I mean,
I'm gonna put the camera down for a second. I'm just gonna aim it over there for you guys. I'll be back in just a minute.
Well, we started on this wheel.
Are you guys still watching the stream? Oh yeah. I'm kind of pushing. I see some I could. It is mobile. Well, actually, I'd have to get a different wireless. All right, so. Yeah. Let me see what this is doing. Yeah, thanks.
Woo. Man, this is surprisingly comfortable for the amount of movement. How do you, what do you do to reduce hip sickness? Very modest, I can say. Woo!
So if you don't mind that rock again, you can make a whole bunch of rocks. Oh, nice. That's good, man. I picked up this thing really fast.
I was born to rover, man.
I think this is the most.
So you could be the buggy too and switch over to the buggy. Oh, this one doesn't have the next one.
Was this in Unity too?
Oh, yeah.
All right, I've been hogging this for enough, but that is awesome, dude. That was really fun.
Come back, there's actually a ton more.
I definitely do want to play more. I just want to let other people in.
I think I have a.
Well, Mitchell, you have to?
I'll call you back. All right. I forgot you were on the phone. All right, bye. Take off my hat for it.
So this game, so Prime Sense is the depth sensing that she was talking about. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The lead, that's what we haven't shown that yet. So probably comfortable hanging on your face like this.
Yeah.
Let's do that. I'm going to resign here. Now, see how this works? You're injured all over right now. Surgery.
Anything you can think of doing for telerobots or virtually, or doing training for these things, good application. Right now, we're focused on teleoperation and just
You guys had a good time. Not trying to screw you. Hopefully I'll have better audio. Right, take it easy.